Chapter 5. Data Collection and Sampling. Sections 1. Multiple choice questions. In the following multiple choice questions, please circle the correct answer. 1. A marketing research firm, in conducting a comparative taste test, provided 4 types of wine to a sample of households randomly selected within the state. Which method of data collection is involved when people are asked to compare the 4 types of wine? Published sources. Experimentation. Surveying. Direct observation. Answer B. 2. Which of the following statements is correct in questionnaire design? The questionnaire should be kept as short as possible, and the questions themselves should also be kept short. The mixture of dichotomous, multiple choice, and open-ended questions may be used. Leading questions must be avoided. All of the above. Answer D. 3. Their France internet site provides a questionnaire instrument that can be answered electronically. Which method of data collection is involved when people complete the questionnaire? Published sources. Experimentation. Surveying. Direct observation. Answer C. 4. Which of the following must be avoided in designing a questionnaire? Dichotomous questions. Leading questions. Open-ended questions. Demographic questions. Answer B. 5. Which method of data collection is involved when a person records the use of the Chicago freeway system? Published sources. Experimentation. Surveying. Direct observation. Answer D. 6. The collection of data about persons or objects by deliberately exposing them to some kind of change, while leaving all else unchanged, and subsequently recording how identical persons or objects respond to different types of change or how different types of persons or objects respond to identical change is a controlled experiment, an observational study, the sample survey, a complete survey or census. Answer A. 7. A study attempted to estimate the proportion of Florida residents who were willing to spend more tax dollars on protecting the beaches from environmental disasters. 3,200 Florida residents were surveyed. Which type of data collection procedure was most likely used to collect the data for this study? A designed experiment. The published source. The random sample. An observational data. Answer C. 8. The personnel director at a large company studied the eating habits of the company's employees. The director noted whether employees brought their own lunches to work, ate at the company cafeteria, or went out to lunch. The goal of the study was to improve the food service at the company cafeteria. This type of data collection would best be considered as an observational study, a designed experiment, the random sample, personal interview. Answer 8. 9. Which of the following statements is false? Many researchers feel that the best way to survey people is by means of a personal interview. An important aspect of surveys is the response rate, which is the proportion of all people who were selected and who completed the survey. The telephone interview, which is a popular method of data collection, is usually very expensive, but it has a high expected response rate. None of the above. Answer C. 10. Which of the following statements is false? The simplest method of data collection is by direct observation. A self-administered questionnaire, which is usually mailed to a sample of people, is an expensive method of conducting a survey and is therefore less attractive when the number of people to be surveyed is large. A personal interview has the advantage of having a higher expected response rate than other methods of data collection. Whatever method is used to collect primary data, we need to know something about sampling. Answer B. True/false questions. 11. The simplest method of collecting data is by direct observation. Answer T. 12. Wouldn't you agree that foreign cars are better than American cars? Is an example of leading questions. Answer T. 13. The telephone interview is usually an inexpensive method of data collection, but it is also less personal and has a lower expected response rate. Answer T. 14. Self-administered questionnaires usually have a high response rate and may have a relatively high number of correct responses. Answer F. 15. Multiple choice questionnaire design allows the respondent to freely formulate his or her own answer and expand on the subject of the question. Answer F. 16. In designing a questionnaire, demographic and open-ended questions must be avoided. Answer, F. 17. The response rate of a survey is the proportion of all people who were selected but did not complete the survey. Answer, F. 18. The only two reliable ways the researcher can make statistical inferences from a sample to a population is to use personal or telephone interviews. Answer, F. 19. Because experimental data tend to be more reliable or stronger than survey data, most new data in economics, business, and many other fields are generated by controlled experiments. Answer, F. 20. A controlled experiment involves collecting data about persons or objects by deliberately exposing them to some kind of change, while leaving all else unchanged, and subsequently recording how identical persons or objects respond to different types of change, or how different types of persons or objects respond to identical change. Answer, T. 21. An observational study involves collecting data about persons or objects by merely recording information about selected characteristics of interest such as A or B while paying no attention to possibly widely diverging other characteristics such as C or D that may affect the chosen characteristics. Answer, T. 22. Open-ended questions provide an opportunity for respondents to express opinions more fully, but they are time-consuming and more difficult to tabulate and analyze. Answer, T. 23. The respondent's choice of yes or no to a question is an example of open-ended questions. Answer, F. Statistical concepts and applied questions. 24. Describe the difference between an observational study and an experimental study. Answer. In an observational study, there is no attempt to control factors that might influence the variable of interest. In an experimental study, a factor such as regular use of fitness center is controlled by randomly selecting who is exposed to that factor, thereby reducing the influence of other factors on the variable of interest. 25. Discuss briefly three methods of conducting a survey of people. Answer. Personal interview involves an interviewer soliciting information from a respondent by asking prepared questions. Telephone interview involves soliciting information by calling people. This is usually less expensive, but it is also less personal and has a lower expected response rate. Self-administered survey. This is an inexpensive method of conducting a survey which is usually mailed to a sample of people, and is therefore attractive when the number of people to be surveyed is large. 26. Discuss briefly 6 important points to consider when designing a questionnaire. Answer. The questionnaire should be kept as short as possible. The questions themselves should also be short, as well as simply and clearly worded. The questionnaire should begin with simple demographic questions to help respondents get started and become comfortable quickly. The questionnaire designer should consider using a combination of dichotomous questions, multiple choice questions, and open-ended questions. Avoid using leading questions. When preparing the questions, think about how you intend to tabulate and analyze the response. 27. Discuss briefly the advantages and disadvantages of telephone interview as a method of data collection. Answer. Advantages. It is usually less expensive than other methods of data collection. Disadvantages. It is less personal, has a lower expected response rate, and many people will refuse to respond to telephone surveys unless the issue is of interest to them. 28. Discuss briefly the advantages and disadvantages of personal interview as a method of data collection. Answer. Advantages. It has a higher expected response rate than other methods of data collection. In addition, there will probably be fewer incorrect responses resulting from respondents misunderstanding some questions, because the interviewer, if asked, can clarify misunderstandings. Disadvantages. It has the potential of response bias if the interviewer says too much whenever asked to clarify misunderstandings of some questions. The main disadvantage of personal interviews is that they are expensive, especially when travel is involved. 29. Discuss briefly the advantages and disadvantages of self-administered survey as a method of data collection. Answer. Advantages. It is an inexpensive method of conducting a survey, since it is usually mailed to a sample of people, and is therefore attractive when the number of people to be surveyed is large. Disadvantages. Self-administered surveys usually have a low response rate and may have a relatively high number of incorrect responses due to respondents misunderstanding some questions. For questions 30 and 31, use a following narrative. Narrative. Beer. A beer manufacturer has been supplying its beer in bottles to grocery stores and in cans to small convenience stores. The company is analyzing sales of this beer to determine which type of packaging is preferred by customers. 30. Beer narrative. Is this study observational or experimental? Explain. Answer. The study is observational. The statistics practitioner did not randomly assign stores to buy bottles or cans. 31. Beer narrative. Outline the better method for determining whether a store will be supplied with beer in bottles or in cans so that future sales data will be more helpful in assessing the preferred type of packaging. Answer. Randomly assign some stores to receive only cans and others to receive only bottles. For questions 32 and 33, use a following narrative. Narrative: smoking and lung cancer. The medical researcher is interested in investigating the relationship between smoking and lung cancer. 32. Smoking and lung cancer narrative. Briefly describe how the researcher might design a study to investigate the relationship between smoking and lung cancer. Answer. Randomly sample smokers and non-smokers and compute the proportion of each group that has lung cancer. 33. Smoking and lung cancer narrative. Is this study observational or experimental? Explain. Answer. The study is observational. Experimental data would require the medical researcher to randomly assign some people to smoke and others not to smoke. Sections 2, 4. Multiple choice questions. In the following multiple choice questions, please circle the correct answer. 34. The difference between the sample mean and the population mean is called non-response error, selection bias, sampling error, non-sampling error. Answer: C. 35. The manager of the customer service division of a major consumer electronics company is interested in determining whether the customers who have purchased a video cassette recorder made by the company over the past 12 months are satisfied with their products. If there are 4 different brands of video cassette recorders made by the company, the best sampling strategy would be to use a simple random sample, a stratified sample, a cluster sample, a systematic sample. Answer: B. 36. A pharmaceutical company interested in measuring how often physicians prescribe a certain drug has selected a simple random sample from each of 2 groups, MD medical doctors and VO doctors of osteopathic. What is this type of sampling called? Simple random sampling, cluster sampling, stratified random sampling. None of the above. Answer: C. 37. Which of the following is not a reason for the need for sampling? It is usually too costly to study the whole population. It is usually too time-consuming to look at the whole population. It is sometimes destructive to observe the entire population. It is always more informative by investigating the sample than the entire population. Answer: D. 38. The manager of the customer service division of a major consumer electronics company is interested in determining whether the customers who have purchased a video cassette recorder made by the company over the past 12 months are satisfied with their products. If a customer survey questionnaire is included in all the video cassette recorders made and sold by the company over the last 12 months, this method of collecting data will most likely suffer from non-response error bias, measurement error, coverage error, non-probability sampling. Answer: 8. 39. When the population is divided into mutually exclusive sets, and then a simple random sample is drawn from each set, this is called simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, selection bias. Answer: B. 40. Which of the following does not characterize stratified random sampling? The population is divided into strata that are distinct. The population is divided into strata that are mutually exclusive and exhaustive. The population is divided into strata that are homogeneous. Non-random sampling is used. Answer: D. 41. When every possible sample with the same number of observations is equally likely to be chosen, the selected sample is called simple random sample, stratified sample, cluster sample, biased sample. Answer: 8. 42. Which of the following is not a reason for drawing the sample? The sample is less time-consuming than a census. The sample is less costly to administer than a census. The sample is usually a good representation of the target population. The sample is less cumbersome and more practical to administer. Answer: C. 43. Which of the following sampling methods is a random probability sample? Chunk sample, quota sample, stratified sample, judgment sample. Answer: C. 44. Which of the following types of samples can you use if you want to make statistical inferences from a sample to a population? The judgment sample, a quota sample, a chunk, a probability sample such as cluster sample, stratified random sample, or simple random sample. Answer: D. 45. Which of the following is an example of non-sampling errors? Errors that arise from the recording of incorrect responses. Errors that arise when responses are not obtained from some members of the sample. Errors that arise when some members of the target population cannot possibly be selected in the sample. All of the above. Answer: D. 46. The Dean of Students mailed a survey to a total of 500 students. The sample included 125 students randomly selected from each of the freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior classes on campus last term. What sampling method was used? Simple random sample, systematic sample, stratified sample, cluster sample. Answer: C. 47. Which of the following sampling plans does use random methods of selections? Simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling. All of the above. Answer: D. 48. The evening host of a dinner dance reached into a bowl, mixed all the tickets around, and selected the ticket to award the grand door prize. What sampling method was used? Simple random sample, systematic sample, stratified sample, cluster sample. Answer: A. 49. The manager of the customer service division of a major consumer electronics company is interested in determining whether the customers who have purchased a video cassette recorder made by the company over the past 12 months are satisfied with their products. Which of the following questions in the survey will not likely induce a measurement error? How many times have you illegally copied copyrighted sporting events? What is your exact annual income? How many times have you brought the video cassette recorder back for service? How many times have failed to set the time on the video cassette recorder? Answer: C. 50. Which of the following can be reduced by proper interviewer training? Sampling error, measurement error. Both A and B. Neither A nor B. Answer: B. 51. Which of the following is the best general definition of a random sample? The subset of all elementary units, or of an associated statistical population, that is selected primarily for expediency in the sense that only the most easily accessible elementary units are chosen for observation. The subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen by taking separate censuses in a randomly chosen subset of geographically distinct clusters into which the frame or population is naturally divided. The subset of all existing units that is selected from a statistical frame or from an associated statistical population with the help of some randomizing device that assures each unit a known and positive but not necessarily equal probability of selection. The subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen in such a fashion that every possible subset of like size has an equal chance of being selected. This procedure implies that each individual unit of the frame or population has an equal chance of selection as well. Answer: C. 52. Which of the following is not a correct statement about the simple random sample? It is a subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen in such a fashion that every possible subset of like size has an equal chance of being selected. It is a subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen in such a fashion that each individual unit of the frame or population has a known and positive but not necessarily equal probability of selection. It is a subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen in such a fashion that each individual unit of the frame or population has an equal chance of selection. If sampling occurs without replacement, any given unit of the sampled frame or population can enter the sample only once. Answer: B. 53. Which of the following is a correct statement about the stratified random sample? It is useful when the frame or population to be sampled is known to contain two or more mutually exclusive and clearly distinguishable subgroups or strata that differ greatly from one another with respect to some characteristic of interest. It is useful when the frame or population to be sampled is known to contain two or more mutually exclusive and clearly distinguishable subgroups or strata that are fairly homogeneous internally. It is chosen by taking separate simple or systematic random samples from every stratum, often in such a way that the sizes of the separate samples vary with the importance of the different strata. All of the above statements are correct. Answer D. 54. Which of the following is a correct description of random error? That equals the difference between the value of a variable obtained by taking a single random sample and the value obtained by taking a census. That equals the difference between the value of a variable obtained by averaging the results of all possible random samples of like size and the value obtained by taking a census. That equals the difference between the value of a variable obtained by taking the census and the unknown true value. That equals the difference between the value of a variable obtained by averaging the results of all possible random samples of a given size and the unknown true value. Answer 8. 55. Which of the following statements about sampling error is false? It cannot be zero in a survey. It can be positive. It can be negative. It is zero in a census. Answer 8. 56. Which of the following is the best description of selection bias? It is a tendency for answers to survey questions to be wrong in some systematic way. It is a systematic tendency in a survey to favor the inclusion of elementary units with particular characteristics, while excluding other such units with other characteristics. It is a systematic tendency for elementary units with particular characteristics not to contribute data in a survey, while other such units, with other characteristics, do. It is a tendency to ask questions that lead respondents, inexorably, to give particular predictable answers. Answer B. True/false questions. 57. In a stratified sample, the population is divided into mutually exclusive sets or strata, and then a simple random sample of members from each stratum is selected. Answer T. 58. The simple random sample involves dividing the population into groups, then randomly selecting some of the groups and taking a simple random sample of their members. Answer F. 59. Self-selected samples are almost always unbiased, because the individuals who participate in them are less interested in the issues than the other members of the population. Answer F. 60. A marketing research firm divides the population of a state into geographic areas, and randomly selects some of the areas and takes a simple random sample of each selected area. This is a cluster sampling. Answer T. 61. A person receives a mail questionnaire and places it in the wastebasket. This exhibits the characteristic of non-response error or bias. Answer T. 62. When the population is divided into mutually exclusive sets, and then a simple random sample is drawn from each set, this is called simple random sampling. Answer F. 63. The 95% confidence interval for average wage rates in a random sample of 40 workers is developed. This exhibits the characteristic of sampling error. Answer T. 64. The target population is the population about which we want to draw inferences and conclusions, while the sampled population is the actual population from which the sample has been taken. Answer T. 65. When the respondents to a questionnaire have different characteristics from those who did not choose to participate in the survey will likely suffer from response error. Answer F. 66. While taking the census is more expensive than taking the sample, taking a census might help eliminate the problem of sampling error. Answer T. 67. The difference between the sample mean and the corresponding population mean is called a sampling error. Answer T. 68. The non-sampling error may be caused by the wording of a questionnaire. Answer T. 69. The sampling error can be reduced by taking a larger sample size. Answer T. 70. Sampling error refers to the difference between the sample and the population that exists only because of the observations that happened to be selected for the sample. Answer T. 71. Two major types of errors can arise when a sample of observations is taken from a population: sampling error and non-sampling error. Answer T. 72. The stratified random sample is a subset of a frame or of an associated population, chosen by randomly selecting one of the first k elements and then including every kth element thereafter until the desired sample size has been reached. Answer F. 73. In a simple random sample, each individual has the same chance of selection on every draw. Answer: T. 74. A group of people who, in response to some general appeal, have selected themselves to participate in a survey. This is an example of a simple random sample. Answer: F. 75. The simple random sample is a subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen in such a fashion that every possible subset of like size has an equal chance of being selected. Answer: T. 76. Non-response error refers to error, or bias, introduced when responses are not obtained from some members of the sample. When this happens, the sample observations that are collected may not be representatives of the target population, resulting in biased results. Answer: T. 77. The stratified random sample is a subset of a frame, or of an associated population, chosen by taking separate simple or systematic random samples from every stratum in the frame or population, often in such a way that the sizes of the separate samples vary with the importance of the different strata. Answer: T. 78. The sources of non-response bias include the use of non-random samples, the faulty design of random samples, and the faulty execution of a perfect sampling plan. Answer: F. 79. Selection bias is a systematic tendency in a survey to favor the inclusion of selected elementary units with particular characteristics, while excluding other such units with other characteristics. Answer: T. 80. Sampling error is a major type of error associated with random sampling and equals the difference between the value of a variable obtained by taking a single random sample and the value obtained by taking the census or by averaging the results of all possible random samples of like size. Answer: T. Statistical concepts and applied questions. 81. What is meant by a self-selected sample? Why are self-selected samples not desirable? Answer: a self-selected sample is a sample formed primarily on the basis of voluntary inclusion, with little control by the designer of the survey. Self-selected samples are usually biased, because those who participate are more interested in the issue than those who don't, and therefore probably have a different opinion. 82. A politician wants to estimate the mean age of registered voters in her district. Unfortunately, she does not have a complete list of households. Describe a sampling plan that would be suitable for her purposes. Answer: use cluster sampling, letting each county in the district represents a cluster. 83. The dean of a college of business with 5 departments wants to estimate the student hours lost per month due to illness of professors. Describe a sampling plan that would be suitable for estimating the college-wide loss and for comparing departments. Answer: the dean can select stratified random samples where the strata are the 5 departments. Simple random sampling can be conducted in each department. 84. Briefly describe 3 types of non-sampling errors. Answer: errors in data acquisition, errors that arise from the recording of incorrect responses. Non-response error, errors that arise when responses are not obtained from some members of the sample. Selection bias, errors that arise when some members of the target population cannot possibly be selected in the sample. 85. Coverage error results in the underscore 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 underscore. Answer: selection bias. 86. Underscore 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 results from the failure to collect data from all subjects in the sample. Answer: non-response error or bias. 87. Underscore 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 refers to differences between the sample and the population that exists only because of the observations that happened to be selected for the sample. Answer: sampling error. 88. Underscore 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 is due to mistakes made in the acquisition of data or due to the sample observations being selected improperly. Answer: non-sampling error. 89. The Vice President of Student Affairs samples the opinions of students in his institution concerning the new computer usage fee by contacting the randomly selected group of 100 freshmen, 75 sophomores, 50 juniors, and 30 seniors. What type of sample is probably being taken in this situation? Answer: stratified random sample. 90. Political surveyors visit 400 residents during one afternoon to ask eligible voters present in the House at the time whom they intend to vote for. Are the target population and the sampled population the same? Explain. Answer. In this situation, the target populations and the sampled population are not the same. The target population consists of all eligible voters about which we want to draw inferences. The sampled population, however, consists of those eligible voters who are at home in the afternoon, thereby excluding most of those with full-time jobs or at school. 91. Give an example of a poll that involves a self-selected sample. Answer. Choose any recent radio or television poll based on responses of listeners who phone in on a volunteer basis. 92. Why are self-selected samples not desirable? Answer. Self-selected samples are usually biased, because those who participate are more interested in the issue than those who do not participate, and therefore probably have a different opinion. 93. Is it possible for a sample to yield better results than a census? Explain. Answer. Yes. A census will likely contain significantly more non-sampling errors than a carefully conducted sample survey. 94. Describe why the Literary Digest poll 1936 presidential election between the Republican candidate Alfred Landon and the Democratic incumbent Franklin D. Roosevelt become infamous. What caused this poll to be so wrong? Answer. The Literary Digest was a popular magazine in the 1920s and 1930s which had correctly predicted the outcome of many presidential elections. To help predict the outcome of the 1936 presidential election, the Literary Digest mailed sample ballots to 10 million prospective voters. Based on the results of the ballots returned, the magazine predicted that the Republican candidate, Alfred Landon, would defeat the Democratic incumbent, Franklin D. Roosevelt, by a 3-2 margin. In fact, Roosevelt won a landslide victory, capturing 62% of the votes. The main reason for the poll being so wrong was non-response bias resulting from a self-selected sample, causing the sample to be unrepresentative of the target population. Only 2.3 million ballots were returned. The second reason was selection bias, resulting from poor sampling design, causing the sampled population and the target population to differ. Most of those to whom a ballot was sent were selected from the Literary Digest's subscription list and from telephone F&E directories. These people tended to be wealthier than average and tended to vote Republican. 95. A regular feature in many newspapers asks readers to respond via email to a survey that requires a yes or no response. The percentages of yes or no responses are usually reported the following day. Should we ignore the statistics? Explain. Answer. Yes, we should ignore the results because this is an example of a self-selected sample. 96. Underscore 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 is particularly useful when it is difficult or costly to develop a complete list of the population members, making it difficult and costly to generate a simple random sample. It is also useful whenever the population elements are widely dispersed geographically. Answer. Cluster sampling.